All right, yesterday, during a campaign stop in Detroit, Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance fielded questions from reporters for, goodness, almost 40 minutes. And during that time, Vance, who is himself an Iraq War veteran, but he seized the opportunity to target the military record of Kamala Harris's running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. And Vance, during his remarks, reminded voters about Walz's deployments and his suspiciously timed retirement from the National Guard ahead of his unit's deployment to Iraq. And breaking just earlier today, the Harris-Walz campaign tacitly acknowledged Walz's aggrandizement of all of his military service by quietly editing his biography. Interesting how that works. So what can we make of all of this? Well, with me to discuss this is Congressman Keith Self, who himself, by the way, served our country for some 25 years before retiring with the rank of lieutenant colonel. And as I mentioned in the opening of the program, he was deployed to Grenada, to Bosnia, to Afghanistan, and Iraq. So today we are honored to have him. By the way, he's a member of the Committee on Veterans Affairs as well as Foreign Affairs, and he represents the 3rd Congressional District of Texas. Congressman Self, always an honor to have you on the program. Welcome back.
Good to see you, Jody. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. All right, so what do you make of the governor's apparent years-long mischaracterization of his own military service? I mean, this is not new. He's been doing this for quite some time.
We see a lot of people do that, Jody, and because of that, I'm very careful. And I want to correct one thing you said. I was in the Gulf in Qatar for Iraq. I was not in Qatar, in Iraq. I was in Qatar with the Central Command headquarters. So I'm very careful, and he should have been as well if he's going to be a member of the House of Representatives and the governor of a state. This is something you do not want to get wrong, your military history, because it's important to Americans that we want to honor our veterans. We want to give them honor where honor is due. But at the same time, we do not want people to elevate, to aggrandize, as you said, their military history. That's a serious matter to the American people.
Well, it is, and I want to just say thank you for correcting my error on that and not having it exactly right either. But now with Walz, we see the campaign, I think, at least in very sloppy fashion, trying to make an effort to correct the record earlier today. How do you take that?
Well, he got busted. I mean, there are a lot of veterans out there that know him. I've called him out for wearing a hat with the Special Forces insignia on it because I earned my Special Forces insignia. He did not. I understand it was a gift from the 1st Special Forces Group, but he was wearing it in other events, which indicates that he wanted people to think that he was a Special Forces Green Beret. He is not. So he continues to just be a fraud when it comes to his qualifications. I mean, not only his deployment, but the rank, the two that people are questioning. There are too many veterans out there, Jody, to let him get away with that as a public figure as he is.
Yeah, I think that is an excellent point. Let's just go to a little bit. You are kind of like the epitome of what someone thinks of as someone who has served our country. I mean, your record speaks for itself. You didn't shy away. You answered the call of duty when called upon. But it's different with Governor Walz. I mean, even while he's advocating for gun control, he mentioned about the gun that he carried in war, but he never was deployed to any kind of war zone. I mean, how serious is that, not only to America, but to veterans? What do you make of that and the fact that the legacy media certainly seems to be trying to cover for him?
Well, the legacy media will cover for him as much as they can. That's why we need to these veterans that are doing their job in calling this out, calling attention to the fact that he is lying. And as I've said before, it is very important to the American people because the military should hold itself to a higher standard. because we go in harm's way, 1% today go in harm's way, actually go in harm's way for the other 99% of the citizens. We should hold our veterans, our young men and women who go in harm's way, to a high regard. But at the same time, that means that the people who have not done it and say they have should be held to great shame.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In your opinion, is this a case of stolen valor?
Well, stolen valor, I've actually gone back and looked at the actual law. It applies to individual medals and about 4 or 5 actual combat ribbons of different designations. So in this, it is the idea of stolen valor, but I don't think it fits under exactly the law that is known as stolen valor. But the idea, absolutely. If it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it walks like a duck, it's a duck.
Wow. Well, quack, quack on what's happening here for sure. Well, listen, in addition, there are so many things. It seems like every day there's more news coming out. In addition to his inflated military resume, what are some other issues that concern you regarding Governor Walz?
Oh, my gosh. The only authentic thing about Tim Walz is his communist beliefs. That's the only thing that I can tell is actually authentic about the guy. Because when I have a list here, because I can't remember them, all of them, an April 23 law allowing the state to take your child if your child is confused about his gender or her gender and wants to be castrated or mutilated, the state can take the children away from you. How about stocking tampons in the boys' bathroom? Supports abortion up to the moment of birth. Incredible. Sanctuary cities, free health care for illegals, driver's license for illegals, free college for illegals. He wants to give them ladders to scale the wall, shut down the schools during COVID, destroyed businesses during COVID. Here's the big one, the Summer of Love in 2020. He actually supported the burning of cities, the destruction of cities. I mean, and the list goes on.
Wow.
There is too much to talk about, Jody.
Well, I tell you, that list needs to get public, and it is. There's a lot of people talking about all these things, but having a concise list like that is extremely helpful. Congressman Keith Self of Texas, always an honor to have you on Washington Watch. Thank you for your service to our country in the past, as well as in the present, and thank you for joining us today on Washington Watch.